Hi, this is Emily. Welcome back to Emily's Stamping Grounds. I'm gonna make today one card with Honeybee's new pretty postage stamp set, and then I'm gonna tell you how I made the other one and not really show you, but give you all the colors and products and everything. So this is the stamp set, and I just fell in love with it because I love those big open spaces to color on it. And then there's the die, and then on the inside, I'm going to use my Will You Be My Valentine sentiment, which I just absolutely love because I'm a huge Parks and Recs fan, and a friend of mine has parties for Valentine's Day. So that is the My Favorite Things lined by hand background stamp that I'm also going to use behind the whole thing. I've got some Lucy's Things pearls that I pulled from the fire crystal sets, and then all of my Copic markers. I'm sorry that was very blurry, but I will tell you what colors I'm using as I'm using them. I stamped the stamp with a pretty postage stamp with Simon Intense black ink, and I'm gonna color with Copics here. If you're not a big fan of watching coloring, just kind of fast forward. I put on a movie while I watch coloring. I might have been watching Bridgerton that day because I'm totally addicted. If you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. It's really fun. Be warned, no kids should be in the room when it is going on. Now, I rely heavily on Sandy Allnack's hex chart. I just think it's beautiful, very, very helpful to me for picking out colors that are in the same family and finding colors that I think really blend well together. So for this, I'm using YG17, YG25, YG23, and YG03. I don't usually use 4 colors, but for whatever reason, I just did on the leaves for this. So I added in the YG25 first, and then blended out with the YG23 and finished with the YG03. And then I decided I needed to come back in with the YG17 and add a little bit of a darker color for shadows and darker at the bottom of each stem. Or each leaf, pardon me. Whenever a leaf crossed, I'd put a little more YG17 in on the bottom leaf just to give it a little depth and shadow on that leaf. And I colored all of these pretty much the same way, doing some really quick coloring. I loved how fast this card came together. The coloring on it, I didn't have to spend a lot of time, but that stamp set really makes it look like I did and have a lot of bang for the buck. So I will just finish out coloring all of these leaves. There's one back there that likes to hide, and I colored it really dark compared to the rest, so you can see that it's behind. Blending out with the YG03 a lot just to get it lighter at the tip. And then for the yellows, I colored with Y26, Y19, and Y21. And I took the Y26 at the base at the top, made that part darker, and then on the sides of the kind of cup of the flower, so that I could blend in with the lighter colors and kind of give the impression of roundness on that flower. A little depth and texture to it. I also used that same color combination on the hearts. I think I left out the Y26 because I decided 2 was fine on those little bitty hearts. For the envelope here, I used BG72 and BG70, and then my colorless blender to get it really light. I just wanted a little bit of color around the flap lines there to give some impression of depth as well. But I didn't want it super dark. Just kind of wanted it to blend into the background a bit. So I used my colorless blender to take the color down a notch on that part. With the BG72, just kind of was a little darker than I thought it was going to be. I went in there with the BG72, back behind some of the leaves, and then blended those out a little bit just to get in those. Oh, pardon me, got a little blurry there, but just to make the envelope a little bit colored in the background, but mostly to blend in. I didn't want it to really stand out too much and take away from the main focal point of the coloring. And then you saw me there kind of trying to remember which one of my markers was the darkest, but I used BG49, BG57. I had BG07 out, but I didn't use it. And then in the end, I grab BG11 and use it for the lightest color at the tips of those leaves, for those smaller leaves. Just decided it needed to be not quite as dark as they were on some of those earlier ones that I colored over on the right. So it's me grabbing the BG11 from my stash and coloring out those last little tips and lightening them a bit. That's pretty much it on the color. I love how fast it came together. I took a white gel pen and added some lines to all the leaves and the cups of the flowers just to add a little more detail and brightness to the overall thing. I was looking for something very cheery. Excuse my schnauzer barking in the background. He is standing at the top of the stairs outside my door. So I used the white gel pen and added highlights to everything. My dog is going to keep barking because my neighbor just came home. And that is the trouble with having a schnauzer. So I got done with all the white highlights, and I was using the die cuts, the honey dye, to cut out a couple extra pieces out of some thin or white cardstock that I decided I didn't want to color on. So I used the back sides, and you can see some Lawn Fawn stamps there on those for Christmas. And I used liquid glue to glue those pieces together so I can add a little bit of dimension to that envelope. It's not going to pop up very much, but liked it. I am really sorry about my dog. He's just going to keep going, and there is no way to stop him. So I layered those two with the colored piece, and I put it on top. And I set that aside to dry, make sure I lined everything up. And then I'm going to stamp the background of the whole card with the lined by hand stamp from My Favorite Things. You can see here it could get to stick to my Misty. I really need to clean my Misty. Please ignore all the black ink that is on there. And then I did Jennifer McGuire's tip where I wanted to line it up, so I put the paper on top of the stamp, closed the back of it, and then flipped the whole thing over so I could have it lined up. I have a piece of tape inside the card keeping it closed, although it's not doing a great job. It's obviously running out of tack on the tape. But anyway, I stamped the lined by hand once, and the lines weren't perfect, so I stamped again just to get a little darker, and got that all finished and ready just to glue my top piece on and then glue some gems on. I like the Art Institute glue because I like the really thin tip that's on the top of it that you can order. So I use that for all my liquid gluing. And then I grabbed my little tray that I had set aside. I picked out these little yellow pearls from the new Lucy's Things fire crystals. I love the set, but some of the colors didn't go so well with this card, so a whole set of crystals, so I just picked out the yellow ones this time. Glued those down in some spots that I thought worked well for the card some on the envelope, some off the envelope, and that is pretty much it. I think I forgot to show stamping that hello on the front of the envelope, but that hello is included in the stamp set along with a couple other of small sentiments that would fit nicely along that bottom flap of that envelope. So now I'm doing the inside with the Will You Be My Valentine, and these will go to some friends for Valentine's Day. Since we can't party like the inside, sorry, my recording stopped for a second, but I stamped the inside with the My Valentine, Will You Be My Valentine. I'll give those to friends. And then for this card, I used BG 75, BG 72, and BG 70 to color the larger of the leaves, the ones that I colored green on the previous card. And then I used YG 41, G000, and G0000 for the lighter, smaller leaves on the card, and those were colored in blue on the previous card. And then for the flowers, I did RV69, RV19, and RV66. And RV66 is actually the lightest of the three of those colors. And then I used some Lucy's Pearls gems on those. I think they're the ivory pearls. And then you saw me looking around there. I was trying to find the Pinkbrush Studios background stamp that is somewhere on my desk, but I couldn't locate it. It is the Diamond Tiles background, and I stamped it in black on a turquoise, a light teal colored card, and that was it. So thank you for tuning in and watching my video, and I love these new honey